Right, welcome back. That's, I think, the picture I showed when I sent an idea of what it was we wanted, this one. Now, I hope most of you have got your own picture, or at least a different picture from me, because it's much better if you actually look at your own problem and sort your own problem out in terms of what I do, rather than actually trying to copy what I'm doing. What happens there is something gets lost in translation. If you try to actually copy what the person who is instructing you is doing, for that to work, you have to think like them. That's not easy. So what I'm trying to say is, if you've got your own picture, please use that, because it'd be much better for you. Now, I'm not actually going to use that one. I'm going to use that one. But if the picture you've got is like this one, with a lot of dark shapes of the bare branches in it, when you're doing the initial exercise, ignore those branches. Just paint where they are. Just forget them for the time being. Because they are darker, the darkest thing in the picture, everything else is lighter than them. When you come to need to put them in, after your initial washes have been laid down, you can put them in on top of what you're painting, instead of trying to paint around them. It very rarely works, painting around them. Sometimes you have to if they're white, but in this case, you're in luck, they're not. They're black or dark brown. So, as I say, when you come to do the initial exercise, just ignore those lines and try to look at the colors that are in the leaves behind. Any questions? Right. Well, blinded you all sides. Right. Now the next thing to do is to decide what colors I'm going to use. Well, you'd think that was easy, wouldn't you? Well, it isn't. There's all kinds of possibilities. I've got a true orange, which is a possibility. I've got Indian yellow, which is quite a strong, bright yellow, which is also a possibility. I don't think I want the umbers. The umbers have got a greeny cast to them, which I don't think will be constructive in this case. I've got to think about a red. The red we think about a lot is cadmium red, but cadmium red is opaque. I might use it right at the end to put on some brights. I might not. It depends on how the painting's going, what I'm thinking about. So I need to think about what autumn colors I'm going to use. And I can't believe I haven't got one of them. What's that? Sepia. I brought all my colours and I haven't got the one I want. Has anybody got a burnt sienna? I find that difficult to believe. I can't believe I haven't got burnt sienna. That one? I think that's the number. Yes, it's okay. Okay. I'll take it back. Right. After all that, I might not even use a burnt sienna, but we'll see. Burnt sienna is a possibility. That's a very autumny sort of warm colour, which will inform the other colours. I think a yellow could be Indian yellow, because that's a nice, bright, strong yellow. That's a possibility. Which blue shall I use? Well, the blue in my picture is very blue. It's a lovely blue. So I think I'll stick with the workhorse of ultramarine. So that's a decision. That's blue mixed with the burnt sienna gives a lovely dark for the trunks, but it will be a warm dark rather than the cool dark, in keeping with the picture as it stands. And that blue with a yellow. Not Oreo then, not lemon. What's that? That is raw sienna. Raw sienna is a possibility. It's not in this picture, the yellows aren't as vibrant as the Indian yellow. So I think I'll go with raw sienna. So I've got raw sienna, ultramarine, burnt sienna. Is that going to be enough? Raw sienna. Well, there's no magic about 3. You know, you can have 4 or 2 or 5, but the idea is to be restricted. I'll have the Indian yellow sort of floating. I might bring that in. I might not. Okay. So what's that? I certainly won't have that. So I think I've got what I want now. The other option for a red might be rose, permanent rose, or I might go for alizarin, actually, thinking about it, because there's quite a lot of darks up at the top here. On the other hand, if I got rose, oh dear me, isn't that difficult? If I've got permanent rose, I can orange it up with the yellow, and I can blue it up with the blue. So that would be a more useful box than the alizarin. Right, you've got to paint. So quit faffing about and get on with that. Okay, those are possibilities. So the final decision at the moment is to use ultramarine, raw sienna, burnt sienna, and the possibility of permanent rose. Okay, so I've got 4 this time instead of 3. Now, I was going to try and do this 2 ways on one day, but I don't think that's going to be possible. So what I might do is do it one way in class and do the other way in a video so that I can attach it to the first video, because let me explain. The way I'm going to paint it in class is to do it wet in wet. Another very effective way of painting it is wet on dry. The important thing about that being the dry has to be dry. And the idea of sitting here waiting for it to dry, I don't think is going to be very appealing for either you or me. So if I do the wet on dry one at home, I can put in the paint, go away and leave it and have a cup of tea, come back, do the next lot of paint, go away, do my practice and whatever, as the system goes along. Right. Okay, so there we are. So I don't need 2 pieces of paper, I only need 1. I've got my usual brush, which is a number 10 sable. I've got my, still comes to a reasonable point, despite the fact I've had it for years. So that's all right. Right. So where to begin? Well, it's got a lovely splash of colour, hasn't it? The whole scene. I'm going to start off not with the sky, but with the trees. I can put the sky in later, because if I look at this picture, the top of the trees have got a bluey touch in the red. So if I accidentally go into them, it's not going to matter. It's going to look good. Right, so I better paint while I can, don't I? I stand up. The paper I'm using is Cardi paper, which is a handmade rag paper that was recommended by Hazel, and I don't find it easy to paint on. So, but I've got a lot of it, so I thought I'd give it a whirl. Right, so I'm going to start with the yellow. I've got raw sienna here. And I don't know which of all these I've got here is raw sienna, so I'm going to give myself some more in that corner there. Right. Now, remember the ephraim? Remember painting the rhinoceros and the elephant? How we painted the shape in one color and then introduced others. Well, I'm putting it, pardon? No, I'm not wetting the paper. That's a different ball game entirely. We could do that one time, which is really, really nice. Right. So I'm going to map in more or less where the tree shapes are. And I'm using the side of the brush because I want to hit and miss about this while I'm doing it. So I've got a shape up here. And then where you find an open shape, you can leave the open shape. There are lots of bit red. I'm not attempting to put all the leaves in where they are. I'm just attempting to get the color more or less. Well, I have done no drawing at all for this part. After I've done this, if I get funky, I might do a little bit of drawing when I'm doing the fence and that kind of thing, but we'll see about that in a minute. So I've covered the whole area, more or less. And again, if you haven't got all that you want to put in, it doesn't matter. It'll, there we are, I think that's all right. Now, if I then take some of the permanent rose, clean the brush. Rosienna. If I then put in a bit of permanent rose into those, I'm just trying to imitate the fall of the pattern. So that it so it's all very hit and miss. Right, now, if I then take a bit of the blue, and introduce that into the yellow's drying out, unfortunately. Never mind, we can go back in. It's not a serious sin. I think I have to renew some of this yellow down here. There we are, that's better. If I renew some of the yellow down here, so that it's wet again, even if I just wet it, it will help. So I'm picking up the blue and putting in some of the blue with, right, where are we? Cool. There's green patches here. And if they don't go green, well, that's because the green underneath, the yellow underneath has dried out. And I can alter that by just adding a bit more green back into the mix. If I just wet it off a bit, it will turn back into a sort of greeny color, right? This part down here had quite a bit of green in it, didn't it, too? So take the blue and knock it back in. That's beginning to come nicely. Now, while I'm in the blue, I can put in the sky, can't I? And if it goes into the red at the top, it doesn't matter, because they are vaguely those sort of colours. I'm just sliding the brush across the top of the paper. I might want to make that a bit more definite up there, so as not to confuse it with leaves, so that the little white bits aren't quite so evident. And if I dry the brush off and just, well, that's a dry brush, I'm just flicking over to. Right, now we've got the colors basically where they are without too much worry. And I can start now going in with darker color. So darker color is more paint, less oh, I tell you what, I forgot to use the raw sienna, didn't I? Oh well, that's life. Just dropping in the dark where I see here. Take the moisture out of the brush. There's too much moisture in the brush. There's plenty of moisture in the paint, so I don't need to worry too much about it. There's moisture on the surface. Moisture. I've got an area here which is dark. There we are. Right. So now I'm going to put in some of the darker reds. Again, just using the side of the brush, flicking it in so that I'm hitting and missing with the paint. Bear in mind that if you go into a wet place, you're going to get all the colors mixing, which might not be what you want. This is actually showing you wet on dry. It's drying very quickly, so you're getting the wet on dry at the same time, which is not what I thought would happen. The chances of you being able to paint every leaf are non-existent, so you have to work out how you're going to get precisely what you want. Right, so I've got quite thick paint here. Is that sky dry? Dryish, yes. So I can, in fact, put in some of the darker shapes here. That's a bit strong. Now, there aren't any of those colors lower down, but if you put some in, it helps the pictures. These are too strong at the moment. Right. I think I better let that dry before I do any more. And look at what I'm going to do down here. Now I need to join the bottom of the trees to the trunks. And there's no point in just putting a dark trunk in. It's got to go into it. So I will use the is that it? Yeah, that's it. I will use the oh dear me, burnt sienna with the blue to get a dark. If I use quite a lot of the burnt sienna, I get a browny dark, which is useful. We have one about here, but I don't want it to. I don't want it to just appear. It's got to join with the tree in a way that is believable, if you like. Pick up a little bit more blue there. Oh dear, not enough time. Can be another picture. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Right. So you put a few branches up here. And if it melds like that, that's fine, because that's giving you the dark at the bottom of the tree. So this this trunk just doesn't suddenly appear sort of stuck on afterwards. It's got a form, it's got an attachment to what's above. There's another one over here, isn't there? Much thicker, stubbier sort of tree. So it doesn't go so far. So this one comes further down, doesn't it? And it's got quite a nice mild leaf, which is rather nice. So what I'm trying to do is to make the bottom of this. I know in the picture it's green. I'm doing it a sort of dirty color, so that the trunk and the tree sort of belong together. I'm going to have to tone that down. It's far too violent. I think the best thing to do is to blot it out, actually. Nothing like blotting paper. Wonderful stuff. I'll just let that dry now and attend to it next week. So I'm putting in this trunk here. This one doesn't go anything like as far, but it seems to be fatter. Since they're all put in at the same time, I'm a bit surprised about that. There we are. We've got all of this area down here to do to make the rest of the picture live. And we've got to attach these branches to these trunks and those branches to those trunks over there. But that will come as we adjust the colours. I think I'd better leave it at that for the time being. What I'm trying to suggest is that you can ghost in the colours. If you're a bit nervous, do it pale first. It's better if you can go in with a wand and get the colour right to start with. Just put in the clumps. If you use your brush on one side, hold it lightly. I've got it between finger and thumb. These aren't doing anything apart from just holding it a bit steady. Stroking it sideways, barely touching the paper. You get that sort of hit and miss effect, which is far more effective at painting leaves and things than it is trying to put in each clump as a shape that's solid. Let it have a bit of air in it. Don't attempt to be too accurate about where you're putting the colour. And like if you get it wrong, blot it out. Start again. Easy done. Okay, I'll finish that one next week.